Now for chapter 36, The Fire Wolves. Bree ran as fast as her legs could carry her, around the lava lake and following the path that surrounded it. Behind her, the fire wolves growled as they chased her, the noise from their throats sounding like a burning piece of wood. She struggled to focus as worry passed over her for the Vitarium bracelet, now melted into a plop of goo in the middle of the room. How would she get to the water temple next? She was so used to the bracelet's power now, she felt lost without it. That worry was soon passed aside as the threat from the fire wolves increased. Out of the corner of her eye, she could see something running over the lava in the room toward her. She took a quick glance to see two of the fire wolves running across the lava without worry at all. In fact, the heat seemed to strengthen them and they ran faster. Panicked, she raised her hand to fire the grip hook and suddenly remembered it was on the ground near the Vitarium bracelet. She tapped into the full extent of her gifts given to her by the ether and jumped over a rather large boulder in the path. One of the fire wolves followed her up the boulder, slashing at her leg with its flaming paw. It hit her ankle, burning it, and causing her to roll awkwardly when she landed. Her hand holding the mystic sword hit a section of the lava pond, and she almost dropped the weapon into it. She stood, shaking with fear, adrenaline, and pain. Both her hands were now burnt, along with her left ankle, and she was losing weapons fast. On top of the boulder she just leapt over stood the firewolf that had hurt her leg. It was soon joined by another, with the other three walking around the boulder while on top of the lava pond. They stared at her, their eyes a brilliant white and their fur a flowing crackle of fire. She removed the earth shield from the strap across her back and braced it in front of her. For a while there was no movement between them. Sweat beaded down her face as the stress and the heat from the room began to get worse. Finally, one of the wolves in the pond leaped at her. She ran forward to meet it, and the earth shield blocking most of her upper body. It slammed into her with great force, but she used her forward momentum to push it away into the rock wall nearby. The sound that escaped from the fiery beast sounded like a crackling whistle, as it was clearly in pain from the hit. The other two wolves from the lava pond took the advantage of Bree, having her back to them, and leapt at her as well. She could sense their approach, so she swung around, bringing the sword with her into a great reaching arc. She was close enough to kill one of the fire wolves, but the second one only got nicked. As the fire wolf landed, it rolled to the side and ended up near the first wolf that had jumped at her. It didn't get to collect itself too long, before there was an explosion above them, followed by the roar of thunder. A pile of boulders fell from a hole in the wall and crushed the first fire wolf. The second one jumped away and looked up, as did the two remaining on the boulder. Blaze and Odiana appeared in the hole. The thunderbird feather on Blaze's collar was glowing, and streams of electricity coursed across his eyes. "Time to even the fight," Blaze yelled, and jumped down. He landed across from the second firewolf, and Bree was taken aback at how much smaller Blaze was compared to these creatures. It didn't seem to matter, as he unleashed a stream of electricity on his opponent, making it writhe in pain. The two remaining firewolves jumped off the boulder and came after Bree. She turned, jumped to a spot behind Blaze, and began running along the outskirts of the lava pond again. She glanced over to see Odiana flying to the center of the room where the altar was. "Odie, get my grip hook and bracelet," she yelled as she ran. Well, whatever's left of the bracelet, she thought to herself. Odiana nodded and dropped to the center area, searching the floor and then altar. After a few moments, the fairy flew across the lava pond towards her in an intersecting path. She held the grip hook and something else in her hand. It looked like the bracelet, but it was probably a molten pile of mush right now. She could see a path to the center of the room approaching, so she jumped across the lava pond at an angle to reach it quicker. As she did, Odiana swooped in and dropped what she was holding. Bree slid the earth shield down her arm and put the mystic sword into her hip pack strap so she could catch the falling items. The grip hook looked a little damaged from where the firewolves probably stepped on it trying to chase her, but it seemed to be reasonably intact. The other end was a flimsy piece of shimmering white metal that she had never seen before. She caught it, but then it rolled down her hand to her wrist and attached itself like a bracelet. It was snug, but not hindering her movement at all. She tried to shake it off, but it stayed on her wrist, flexing with any movement she did. In its brilliant shimmer, she could make out a word written in Golian. Porphyrian. She looked up to Odiana, who was shooting streams of fairy magic at the last two firewolves to try and stop them. "This isn't the Vitarian bracelet," she yelled. "It says Porphyrian." Odiana shrugged. "It's what I saw on the altar." One of the wolves dodged her attack and launched at her as she fired some more magic. Odiana barely made it out of the way, but her magic blast fired into the roof, causing part of it to collapse inward. A strange sensation watched over Bree, which distracted her from the large boulders falling toward her from above. She looked up to see the rocks close to her, but she knew it was too late. She held up her hands as the roof collapsed on top of her.